Hello and welcome back to the Broken Lobo Gaming channel. Today we're going to focus on the museum and the continuation of the max score series. Just a note, I may go back and do the club video again because I was able to achieve a max score of 11,140 points there. So I may do that again just to kind of show people what they can do if they're looking to achieve a max score there. The previous video, I think that I was playing more casually and was able to get to 9,800 points, which is still really good, but isn't the max score. So I want to make sure that I'm being accurate when I quote these video titles. This video, however, I would like to say I'm really proud of. I was able to achieve a max score of, I believe, 13,260 points, and I'd love to share the strategy around how I was able to achieve that. Obviously everyone's playstyle is very different, and so again, my videos don't necessarily focus on what you should do in terms of combat, though I hope that watching these videos inspires you to be creative and to be dynamic, which is the way that I like to play. But we're going to focus on the power of stabbing your enemies. Something that I discovered throughout the course of playing this game is that actually stabbing enemies and finishing them with that move actually doubles whatever the enemy is worth. So obviously if you're keeping your attack multiplier at 5x and you stab them, you're actually able to double the output, which goes a long way in helping you to achieve the max score. So with that being said, happy to have you here, and let's jump right into it. So you'll notice throughout the course of this video, again, that I'm going to be focused on stabbing enemies whenever I have the chance, and obviously making sure that I keep my attack multiplier up to 5x. As per usual with these videos, it'll be a room by room assessment of the strategy. Obviously you guys go about approaching it however you'd like, but generally speaking, the principles that I'm displaying here are something that you should pay attention to. So as you can see, I have my attack multiplier up at 5x, and I make sure to stab that guy. The reason that I do that is that he is worth 30 points. So 30 times 5 is 150, but if you stab him, he's worth 300 points. Again, stabbing an enemy and finishing them that way will double your score. So keep that in mind, and I would certainly encourage that what you essentially want to do is memorize each sort of enemy group per room and try to identify the most expensive enemy, I would say. Normally they're the toughest enemies, so obviously keep that in mind. It doesn't really benefit you to stab just any enemy. Again, focusing on the ones that cost the most will help you to achieve the max score that I did. So in this room, it's that guy with the knife that is worth the most. So what you'll notice a lot is throughout this video, obviously if I were just focused on killing these guys, they would be taken care of fairly quickly. But I'm strategically, taking down the lower cost enemies and stabbing the enemy that costs the most, which is what I just did there with the guy in the suit. So again, you want to keep that in mind, and a good thing to do is to pay attention to the enemies that I'm stabbing per encounter. Again, this guy in the suit here with the knife is worth more than the guy with the bat, so I want to disarm him quickly, then take the guy with the bat out so that I can focus on stabbing this guy. So a tried and true strategy is to bait them into an attack and then move backwards so that you can set up the stabbing motion, because you have to hold down triangle in order to achieve that. So typically what I'll do is disarm the person who has a knife, and then I'll jump backwards and create some space after baiting them into attack, so that when they come back at me, I'm already ready to stab them. This is a pretty fun room. I've seen people handle this in a lot of different ways, using the the light bulbs to take them out, which actually would be a pretty good idea because it does allow you to preserve the bat, which will be helpful for this room. So you'll notice typically the enemies with the knives cost more than the enemies with bats or enemies without weapons. And so what I'm doing obviously here is making sure that I'm keeping my attack multiplier up. And then I'm going to focus on taking out the weaker enemies. So again, the enemies with the bats first, and disarming the guys with the knives. In this room in particular, I believe there are three knives. Three knife-wielding enemies, I should say, and I believe the girl in the blue shirt cost the most, followed by the guys in the suits. So you'll notice that even though I'm getting hit here, it's primarily because I'm trying to avoid killing the higher cost enemies without, the prospect of being able to stab them. And then also something else that I've noticed, obviously you want to make sure that whenever an enemy turns empowered, that you stab them whenever you get a chance, because that's an easy 1,000 points. An empowered enemy is worth 500 points at the 5x multiplier, so they're worth 100 points individually. So you'll notice here I wanted to keep her alive for last, because I've noticed that trying to hit her with a takedown will trigger that empowered state, and then it'll be very easy to stab her, and you'll see here what I mean by getting 1,000 points. So I went from 2,500 to 3,500 points with a simple stab. So this is going to be very helpful for you guys. Something else I've also noticed is, I would say every 3 rooms you're going to encounter an empowered enemy. So if I hadn't encountered one in that previous room, then the guy in the light blue shirt here typically turns empowered if you try to take him down, just as an FYI. But because I know that I already encountered an empowered enemy, I can take him out however I choose. I'm still going to stab him because he is the highest cost enemy in this encounter, and I want to get my points up. So as you can see, I think he's worth 300 points normally, and I stabbed him and he became worth 600 points. And in general, if you have the opportunity to stab an enemy, even a lower cost enemy at the end of an encounter, I would definitely recommend doing it, because again, it'll double the cost. That woman was only worth 50 points, so she's worth 10 points individually, 50 points at the 5x multiplier, but because I stabbed her, she became worth 100 points. So with this room in particular, again, I think there are 2 enemies with knives, the girl and the guy. The guy is worth less than the girl, and if you hadn't encountered an empowered enemy at this point, then typically she's the one in this room who turns empowered, just as an FYI. So you might want to sort of take out everyone else and leave her for last. There are 2 knives here. I'm only going to stab one person. It'll either be an empowered enemy, but if not, then the next high cost enemy would be one of the big guys. So you're going to see a little bit of dancing here, because I'm strategically trying to preserve the higher cost enemies. But as you can see there, I had the opportunity to stab a big guy, so I went ahead and did that immediately. I'm already at over 5,000 points. Now the fodder enemies with bats, I quickly take out. I don't really worry about stabbing them. And because I've already stabbed one person, I want to preserve one of the knives for the next enemy. He is actually worth 500 points at 5x, so stabbing him will give you 1,000. So you'll notice that by the time I get to the next room, after I quickly take him out, which is just another great strategy to quickly dispose of that guy, because he actually is pretty tough unless you know how to parry and dodge. Not only is it an effective way to quickly take him out, it's also a guaranteed 1,000 points, and the easiest 1,000 points you'll probably get in this game. I like to keep a bat around for the big guys. What I've noticed is that you just got to remain relentless with them. They'll obviously not deplete the health bar, but as long as you keep attacking them, you will eventually break their posture. So now I know I have the knife, and I'm going to take that into this next room. And again, something I like to do is, instead of pressing the prompt, if you just walk up to him and stab him, you can just quickly dispatch of him, and again, easy 1,000 points there. So from here, I'm going to go fight the disciple, because I'm going to use her staff to enter the next phase on the 4th floor. I think the only advice I would have for her is to obviously just remain patient. Quickly disarm her, because she's a lot easier to take out when she doesn't have the staff. Even though she becomes a lot more dynamic, her moves are a lot easier to, I think, telegraph in either parry or dodge, as you'll see here. When she does the high double kick, she'll do a sweep. Again, this is a move that's programmed for all the disciples, so at this point in the game, you should be pretty familiar with them. Bait them, avoid. At that point, you can either sweep them, use the palm fist into a directional throw, or parry. Pick your poison. So as you can see at this point, I'm already at over 7,000 points, and I think that the highest I've ever gotten at this point has been about 7,200. So obviously there was a point where I didn't hit the 5x multiplier, but that's okay, because obviously the goal is to remain alive. This is also a no death run. So by the time I get to the second shrine, I have over 7,000 points. And this is why I'm not too worried about unlocking what other people consider essential perks like parry, in the early stages, because I've become very confident in my ability to score highly, and hopefully this video helps you guys do the same. So as you can see, I take this staff in here because it really helps me to control the crowd at first. These fodder enemies are not difficult, but they are annoying. So using the staff takes them out quickly. I wanted to disarm the girl with the knife because the guy with the white hair is actually worth more. And there's an opportunity to stab him, though you don't have to do that. You can actually end up with 3 knives at this point, which would be very helpful for the last group in this encounter, the big guy and the 2 disco girls. But in this video, I believe I focus on just stabbing this guy. Now I pick up the staff, and again, it really helps with crowd control. Doing, avoiding and parrying, which is obviously something that you need to work on, but I'm fairly certain that at this point in the game, you're familiar and comfortable with at least one of those techniques. For me, it was avoiding over parrying, but as I continue to play the game, I started to focus on parries more. But as you can see, using that stick really helps me to control the crowd, and you don't have to take out everyone, it's just a certain amount of enemies. Eventually they disappear and leave the arena, and then you just have that last group, which is the big guy and the disco girls. I haven't counted exactly how many enemies it is, but I would say you probably have to take out 5 or 6 of that second group in order to trigger the last group. So as you can see here, I'm going to be moving back a lot, baiting them into attacks with the express purpose of being able to stab them. She was able to get me with one of her sweeps. They obviously have annoying reach, and so I realized that, and I make sure to create even more distance. As she's baited, now I know that one of them is coming at me, and I'll be able to stab them. And obviously, because they're tougher enemies, it'll be a lot harder to do that. They'll not necessarily telegraph, but they're programmed to avoid a lot of attacks that the fodder enemies can't. But as you can see, I was able to bait her and create enough distance and also time the attack such that when she was coming at me, I was able to stab her. Unfortunately, the big guy was able to slam me a little bit, which is obviously very annoying, but it is what it is. Duck Strike is incredibly effective against the Disco Girls. What you want to do is time that attack for about the time that they're going to hit you. You will dodge that, duck under it, and then be able to sort of stun them and then sweep them, get a couple ground pounds in, which is very helpful in taking these guys out. I've noticed that the room is very dark, so it kind of impacts your ability to judge the distance of their attacks, and because they're so long, I like to kind of hang back and give myself a lot of room, which allows for margin of error. There you go. Duck Strike Sweep. Doing that one more time will end her. Then it's just a matter of taking out the big guy. So I preserved the knife for him. And something I like to do is I like to use corners to sort of nullify their ability to do their grab attack. He's stuck for whatever reason, but eventually he'll come at me. I baited him because I wanted him to come out, and now what I want to do is use the barrier as a shield, essentially, and then I can safely stab him. So as you can see, I'm already at 9,500 points. And moving into the next phase, another great hallway scene. Again, you just want to make sure that you keep your attack multiplier at 5x. Take these guys out however you wish. I like to get in there and mix it up, bait them into doing attacks so that I can dodge and parry accordingly. I mean, obviously, if you have focus at this point, I think the easiest thing to do would probably be to use it on one of them to incapacitate, but me working on hand-to-hand combat, it's not something that I do very often unless I'm in a pinch. I found that the running sweep was incredibly effective, and then also sweeping sort of preemptively as you're fighting one person. Once you knock them down, just automatically going into that sweep animation is very helpful in terms of crowd control, especially when the game takes on a side-scrolling perspective. Again, using that running sweep to kind of set the tone of the fight. And I'll just take these guys out. As you can see, I'm already over 10,000 points. And obviously you want to prioritize your health at all times, but if you can help it, ensuring that the attack multiplier remains at 5x is essential. So I'll just take these guys out. I believe there's just one last room. These enemies are actually pretty easy, and I think that they put them here as a means of you artificially getting your health back up before you enter the home stretch of this level. Again, always trying to be creative and aggressive when fighting these guys. It's free health at this point. That's the way that I look at them, and that's the way you should look at them as well as we continue on our path to mastery. Now with this guy, I actually didn't really learn how to fight these guys until the next level, when there were more of them and I had to learn. Something that I found is pretty effective with these guys if you're having any trouble is to just create distance and constantly use the duck strike in order to stun, which I missed there. Ideally, what you'd want to do is just parry that last attack, which is something that I learned later on, but at this point in my journey, I was not as confident in fighting them. So again, if you're having any trouble with them, the duck strike is a very effective tool. Also the charged fist, great to set up additional attacks. One of my favorite combos that I don't display here is charged fist into palm fist, and then using the hook sweep to immediately knock the enemy down so that you open them up to ground pounds. Fortunately, I tried to move backwards there, but the glacier display was in my way and I paid for it. So again, you'll see me move back to create distance and then taunt him in order to artificially get the multiplier up. Dodging is also incredibly effective, obviously, in getting the attack multiplier up or parrying. But again, I wasn't as confident at this point to do that. So, creating my distance, I'm using the duck strike in order to get a hit or two off before resetting. I'm getting very close to the end here. Should be taken out very soon. Just a pro tip, make sure that you're not backwards when trying to use the duck strike on these guys, because realistically, they'll hit you every single time with that forward kick. So now we're here in the home stretch with our favorite enemy, the disco bros, which I obviously hate. I'm pretty sure a lot of people hate them as well. But again, I think one of the most effective strategies in fighting them is using duck strike. Because I've been able to identify the one that I know is not an actual statue, I approach her with a running sweep in order to immediately incapacitate her, get her on the ground for some ground pounds, and then I'm just using the duck strike or dodging in order to finish her off. But again, the duck strike is an incredibly effective move against this enemy type. Great way to neutralize them. So now I'm continuing to progress through. Again, I think that this hallway is here to help you get your health back up before you fight the last group of girls. The ones with the blade clogs, I guess you would describe them as. Incredibly annoying. Probably the worst enemy type in the game, is, in my opinion. But they are worth a lot. So if you keep your attack multiplier to 5x, you have an opportunity to really rack your score up. So what you saw me just do there was kind of cautiously break that statue, because if you move too fast, you might jump down and miss the opportunity to bring that staff into the fight with Kuroki. So again, it's about creating distance. I've built up some focus. So I'm going to use that against them, obviously, but you just want to make sure that however you're attacking them, you're being effective. And because they like to gang up on you, they don't fight fair. You'll see that I'm fighting them cautiously, right? So I might stun one. I don't get greedy. If I see that another one's coming, I move back immediately. So even though I've swept her, see, I made sure that it was safe to ground pound her, because being too overzealous will result in a lot of frustration for you, because they will continue to attack. And unfortunately, even though the ground pound is actually a great way, it does have invincibility frames. It does not work against this enemy type. They will keep coming, and one of those spin kicks will hit you while you're on the ground, so it's best to just be cautious. Again, stun one, move back, reset, let them come at you. There I knew that the enemy wasn't going to enter into an attack animation, so I was able to get a quick ground pound going. And now there's one left. So making sure that my attack multiplier is at 5x. She's almost done here. Here we are at 12,860. So here's a max score for you. And now obviously you're at the point now where even though Parry is expensive, there's an opportunity for you to completely unlock it at this point, or to spread it around to whatever perk fits your playstyle. I think Parry would be imperative against Kuroki, especially in her first phase. There you have it. Very happy to do these videos for you guys. Please leave feedback, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you next time. Peace.